What is the ego? What is the idea of clinging to the ego? Answers from OSHO. Part 1. What is the ego? There are three types of awareness: awareness of the self, awareness of the world, and awareness of the delusion between the self and the world, an intermediary zone that Fritz Perls, the father of Gestalt therapy, describes as the DMZ, or the demilitarized zone. This is not a battleground, but rather a place that harbors personal prejudices and biases which we use to judge everything around us, including ourselves. When we view the world through this lens, the truth becomes obscured, and we lose the ability to see the reality of things, of life, a phenomenon that Hindus call Maya, or illusion. By relying on these biases to judge the world, we create a false reality of our own making, an exaggerated picture of the truth. Similarly, when we look at ourselves through these judgments, combined with our personal knowledge and viewpoints, we also create an inaccurate picture of ourselves, an illusion referred to as the ego. This prevents us from seeing the reality within us, leading us to be blindly unaware not just of the external world but also of our inner world. Gurdjieff, another thinker, describes this space as the false personality zone, a place filled with all forms of ego clinging and daydreaming. The existence of the DMZ, or demilitarized zone, signifies the extent to which our souls are unbalanced, adrift between the self and the world. As the DMZ expands, our mental state becomes more unstable, while its contraction leads us to become stronger and more mentally balanced. And when this gap completely disappears, leaving no thoughts to separate us from the world, we reach the emptiness described by Buddha, a state of absolute health, purity, sanctity, and complete union with the universe. First, we need to understand, the ego is not a reality. It is merely an illusion. It is not present at your birth. You do not carry it with you. It is not a chapter of your being. When a child is born, it does not bring the ego into the world. The ego is something that one learns. It is not inherited. The American psychologist Gordon Allport calls the self the proprium, and it is established by cutting from the propriate of the word appropriate. Proprium means something that belongs to someone, or something unique to that person. The self, the ego, is created because every emptiness has its specificity. Each void has its own way of flourishing. It is this uniqueness that leads to the creation of the ego. I love in my way. You love in your way. I behave in my way. You behave in your way, and so it is with all other phenomena. There is a difference between people, but it is only a difference. Just as roses bloom in one way and lotuses in another, both bloom. The blooming is one, the emptiness is one, but each emptiness operates in a different way. Thus, the ego is created. Chapter 2. The ego is merely a non-existent idea. The ego does not exist. It is a non-existent idea, merely a notion. It's like seeing a rope in the dark and thinking it's a snake. Then you start running breathlessly, stumble over a rock, break a bone, only to realize the next morning that it was just a rope. Yet its impact is tremendous. The snake is not real, but it affects your reality. A misunderstanding feels as real as understanding. It's not true, but it's real. That is the difference between reality and truth. The snake seen in the rope is real because of its consequences. Its outcomes are real. If you are faint-hearted, it can be very dangerous to mistake the rope for a snake. You might run so fast that you could have a heart attack. It could affect your whole life. And it's odd when it's just a rope. A non-existent idea, considered real, will create suffering. What is true suffering? Suffering occurs when you hold an idea that does not align with reality. That's when there is suffering. For example, if you think a stone is food and you eat it, you suffer. You get a stomachache. But if it truly was food, you wouldn't suffer, and you would be satisfied. Suffering is created by ideas that do not match reality. Bliss is created when your ideas match reality. Bliss is the harmony between you and the truth. Suffering is the separation, the crack between you and the truth. When not in line with the truth, you live in hell. When in line with the truth, you enter heaven. Just like that. And that's all there is to understand. This is why Buddha emphasized so much on emptiness, because when the mind is without thoughts, you can't project anything. Then you will see the truth as it is. When you have no idea, when the mind is empty, like a mirror reflecting, whatever appears is reflected accurately, and it reflects truthfully. But if there are ideas, your vision becomes distorted. Thoughts create the environment for distortion. The ego, as presented, is not a clear entity, but a phenomenon reflecting itself. It creates a separate reality based on its own reflection, and the challenge lies in recognizing that the effort to eliminate the ego seems like an impossible task. This perspective does not deny the possibility of eliminating the ego, but clarifies that the ego, by its nature, does not exist in the way we commonly understand. This raises a question. How can you remove something that does not exist? How can you eliminate what is non-existent? The important thing we need to know is, Buddha himself did not say that the ego must be eliminated. He said, look at the ego, and when you find it nowhere, it vanishes. What can you do then? When you delve into your inner self and find no ego, you encounter silence there. No self reigning over, no center like the ego present. Eliminating the ego does not mean you have to remove it. Eliminating the ego is just a way of describing the process of penetrating the inner self. It means that when you go inside and search everywhere, finding nothing, the ego disappears. Actually, saying disappears is also not accurate because it was never there from the beginning. It's a misunderstanding. Chapter 3. How is the ego formed? There are 7 gates through which the ego enters, 7 gates through which we open the door for the ego. These gates need to be understood because if you understand them, you will be able to eliminate the ego, because these gates, when clearly understood, can be closed. Then the ego is no longer created. If seen clearly, understood that the ego is merely a shadow, it will disappear on its own. The first gate, the bodily self. As referred to by Gordon Allport as the bodily self. We are not born with a sense of self. The child in the womb has no sense of self. It is one with the mother. It is merely one, connected, merged with the mother. The mother is its entire existence, its universe. It does not know that it is separate. Separation occurs when it comes out of the womb, when the physical connection with the mother is severed, and it must breathe on its own. In fact, breathing is not something the child has to do. How can it? It is not yet capable of breathing, so it has not reached that stage. Breathing happens on its own. It is not something it will do. It happens automatically. It comes from emptiness. It begins to breathe. That moment is very precious, crucial, dangerous. Parents, doctors, nurses, midwives, all are eagerly waiting. Will the child breathe or not? The child cannot be forced, cannot be persuaded, and it cannot do anything more. If it's going to happen, it will happen. It might not happen, but it could. Sometimes a baby never breathes, and then we think it died before birth. The baby's first breath is truly a miracle. It has never done this before. It couldn't possibly be prepared. It doesn't know it has a respiratory system. Its lungs have never worked before, but the breath comes and a miracle occurs. However, remember that the breath comes from the void. Later you might say, "I am breathing." That's absurd. You do not breathe. Breathing happens. Do not create the idea of I. Do not say, "I am breathing." No one is breathing. It's not within your authority to do or not do. Try it. Stop breathing for a few seconds, and you'll find stopping is also tough. In a few seconds, an unknown push comes, and you start breathing again. Or hold your nose. Try for a few seconds, and suddenly you feel a significant push. It's beyond your capability. The breath wants to enter. It's the void breathing within you. Or you could call it God. There's no difference. It's all one. The void or God, it means the same. Void in Buddhism means exactly what God does in Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism. God is the void. We are not born with a sense of self. It's not a genetic chapter of us. A newborn cannot differentiate between itself and the world around it. Even after it starts breathing, it takes months before it realizes there's a difference between inside and outside itself. Gradually, through increasingly complex learning and sensory experience, a vague distinction arises between something inside me and other things out there. This is the first gate through which the ego enters, the distinction that there is something inside me. For instance, a child feels hunger. It feels that from within. And when scolded by the mother, it feels that from outside. A distinction gradually has to be felt, that some things come from within and some from outside. When its mother smiles, it can see the smile coming from its mother, and then, in response, it also smiles. Now it feels the smile coming from within, somewhere inside. The idea of inside and outside arises. This is the first experience of the ego. In fact, there's no distinction between the outside and the inside. The inside is chapter of the outside, and the outside is chapter of the inside. The space inside and outside your house is not two spaces. Remember that. They are one space. Similarly, the notion of you are there and I am here is not two separate entities. We are two aspects of the same energy, two sides of the same coin. But this way, the child develops the idea of the ego. The second gate is self-identity. The child learns about its name, understands that the figure in the mirror daily is the same person as seen yesterday, and believes that the sense of self remains constant amidst all change. It notices that everything changes. Sometimes it's hungry, sometimes not, sometimes asleep, sometimes awake, sometimes angry, sometimes loving. Everything keeps changing. One day the weather is nice, another it's gloomy and overcast. But standing in front of a mirror, it sees no change. Have you ever seen a little one sitting in front of a mirror? It tries to grab the child in the mirror because it thinks that child is over there. If it can't catch it, it goes around to the back and looks behind the mirror. Is that kid hiding there? But gradually, it realizes that the person in the mirror is its reflection. From there, it feels a certain continuity. The face in the mirror yesterday is also the face today. When children first look into a mirror, they become fascinated. They can't walk away. They keep coming back to the mirror again and again to see who they are. Everything keeps changing. One thing seems unchanging, the image of oneself. The ego has another gate through which it enters, the image of oneself. The child's pride in its accomplishments, when it does something on its own, acts, explores, creates. When it learns anything, for example, it learns the word dad and then keeps saying, "Dad, Dad," all day long. It doesn't miss any opportunity to use this word. When it begins to walk, it tries all day. It falls, stumbles, hurts itself, but it gets up again because it brings a sense of pride. I am not bad at this. I can walk. I have walked. I can carry things from here to there. Parents are anxious because the child is a disruption. It turns everything upside down. They can't understand. Why? What for? Where has it taken that book now? It doesn't care about the book. It's meaningless to it. It can't understand why you are glued to this thing. What is Dad looking for in there? But its interest is different. It can carry something. The child likes to kill animals. Seeing an ant, it will immediately step on and kill it. It can do something. It enjoys doing various things. It can be quite cruel. If it sees a watch, it will open it up. It wants to know what's inside. It becomes an explorer, an investigator. It enjoys activity because it opens the third door to its ego. It feels proud. It can do. It can sing. It's ready to sing for anyone. If guests come, it will linger around in case someone asks. Then it will sing right away. Or it can dance, imitate, do something. Whatever it is, it wants to do it to prove that it's not just a nobody, that it too can achieve. This action brings the ego into play. The fourth gate, self-extension. The child talks about my house, my dad, my mom, my school. It gradually expands the circle of my. My is its pet word. If you take its toy, it doesn't care much about the toy. It cares more about, this toy is mine. You can't take it. It's more about the fact that it doesn't really care much about the toy itself. When no one is asking, it will throw the toy into a corner and play with something else. But if someone wants to take the toy, it doesn't want to give it away. That's its my. My gives birth to the sense of I. That feeling creates the I. And remember, these gates don't just apply to children, they forever shape the entirety of your life. When you say my house, you're being just as childish. When you say my wife, you're being just as childish. When you say my religion, you're being childish. When a Hindu argues with a Muslim about religion, they are both being childish. They don't know what they are doing. They haven't truly matured and grown up. Children often argue, my dad is the greatest in the world. Priests argue in the same way. My God is the best, the most powerful, the only real one. All other beliefs are inferior. These are very childish attitudes, but they linger with you throughout life. The fifth gate, self-image. This is about how children see themselves. Through interactions with parents, through rewards and punishments, a certain image of themselves is formed, good or bad. Children always look to how their parents treat them. They are doing something. They wonder whether their parents will praise or punish them. If they feel punished, they think, I must have done something wrong. I am bad. If they do something good and are praised, they think, I am good. I am well regarded. They will try to do more good things to be well regarded. Or if the parents are really strict and overly harsh, and their demands are so unreasonable that the child cannot possibly meet them, everything the child does is seen by the parents as bad. The child reacts and rebels. This presents two pathways, and the gate is one. Either you praise the child and it feels comfortable being regarded highly, or if you ignore it, it will say, okay, let me show you. Then it will make everyone pay attention to it. It will act out. It will smoke. It will start doing things you dislike. And it will say, see now, don't underestimate me like that. Pay some attention to me. I am also a person and a child too. Don't hate me like that. Good people and bad people are created this way, saints and criminals alike. The sixth gate, the self as reason. The child learns to reason, to use logic, to argue. It realizes it can solve problems. Reasoning becomes a tool for its ego. That's why people argue. That's why the educated think they are important. Uneducated? You feel somewhat ashamed. You have advanced degrees. You are a PhD or a doctor of literature, and you boast about your degrees. You won gold medals. You were the top of your class. You got this and that. Why? Because you are showing off that you have become a person of reason, highly educated, graduated from the most prestigious universities, studied with the best professors. I can reason better than everyone else. Reason becomes a significant support. And the seventh gate is legitimate striving. Living with a purpose, ambition, becoming. People want to become this or that, him or her. Concern for the future, desires, and long-term goals emerge, the final stage of the ego. Then people think about what they must do in this world to leave a mark in history, to etch their name on the timeline. Become a poet, a politician, a saint, do this or that. Life is swiftly passing by, slipping through quickly, and one must do something. Otherwise, in no time, they will return to the void, and nobody will know they were here. People want to be an Alexander the Great or a Napoleon. If possible, they want to become someone good, famous, a celebrity, a saint. If that's not achievable, they'll look for another way. Many murderers have confessed that they didn't kill just because they wanted to kill the person, but because they wanted their names on the front page of newspapers. Years ago, in America, someone confessed to killing over 30 people. The police investigated and concluded he was just claiming to become famous. A murderer from behind. He comes and stabs someone, and he hasn't even seen this person before. He has absolutely no knowledge about this person. They are not acquaintances, not friends nor enemies. He has never met this person. And this time, too, he doesn't see the face of the person he has killed. He has never seen this person. He just kills him from behind. This person was sitting on the beach looking at the waves, and this man comes and kills him. The court was shocked, but the person said, "I don't care about the one I killed. It doesn't matter who was killed. I went there to find someone to kill. If it wasn't this person, it would have been someone else. But why?" And he said, "Because I wanted my picture and my name to be published on the front page of newspapers. My wish is fulfilled. The whole country is talking about me. I feel elated. Now I am ready to die. If you execute me, I can die happily. I have become famous. I have gained notoriety." If you cannot be famous for good deeds, you will try to be infamous for bad ones. If you cannot be a saint like Gandhi, you would rather be Adolf Hitler. But nobody wants to be a nobody. These are the 7 gates through which the illusion of the ego is reinforced, becoming stronger. And these are also the 7 gates, if you understand, through which the ego must be expelled. Gradually, through each gate, you must delve deep into your ego and bid it farewell. Chapter 4. All ego clinging is ignorance. The 7 gates of the ego are not completely separate from each other, but lean on one another. And it's very rare to find a person who has reached their ego through all these 7 gates. If a person has reached their ego through all 7 gates, they have a complete ego. And only a complete ego can dissipate, not an incomplete one. When the fruit is ripe, it falls. When it is not ripe, it clings to the branch. If you are still clinging to the ego, the fruit is not ripe yet. Hence, it clings. When the fruit is ripe, it falls to the ground and disappears. The same goes for the ego. This is the paradox, that only a truly evolved ego can be transcended, because only they know the misery of the ego, so they have the strength to surrender. They have experienced every aspect of the ego and have tasted enough disappointment. They have suffered a lot, realized enough is enough, and want to find a reason to shed it. The excuse could be God, a guru, or anything, but they want to surrender. The burden has become too great, and they have been carrying it for too long. People with underdeveloped egos can also surrender, but their surrender won't be complete, not whole. Something deep inside still clings. Something deep inside still hopes. Maybe there's something good within the ego. Why surrender? In the East, the ego has not been developed much, because teachings about no self have led to the misunderstanding that if the ego needs to be discarded, why develop it at all to begin with? A very simple argument. If it has to be abandoned one day, why bother with it? Then why go through so much effort to build it up? After all, it's going to be discarded. Therefore, the East does not pay much attention to developing the ego. And the Eastern mind is very easily surrendered to anyone. It's very easy, always ready to surrender. But this surrender is hard to be effective because you don't have an ego to surrender. The Eastern ego is very fragmented, and they think that makes it easy to surrender. They are always ready to surrender to anyone. A hat drops and they are ready to bow down, but their surrender lacks depth. It is very superficial. On the other hand, the Western ego is strong and well developed, because the entire Western education system aims to create a distinct, very clear, very cultured, complicated ego. They think it's hard to surrender. They have never heard of surrender, submissiveness. The very idea seems ugly, humiliating. But the paradox is that when a man or woman in the West surrenders, that surrender is profoundly deep. It permeates to the very core of their being because this ego is ripe. The ego has evolved. That's why you think it's hard to surrender. But if surrender happens, it pierces through to the core. It is absolute. In the East, people think surrender is easy, but because the ego is not fully developed, it never goes deep. A Buddha is someone who has tasted every experience of life, every passion of life, the hells of life, and whose ego has ripened to every ultimate, to the maximum. And in that moment, the ego falls away and disappears. Then you are a child again. This is rebirth. This is resurrection. First, you must nail your ego to the cross. You must suffer on the cross of the ego, and you must carry this cross on your shoulders to the very end. The ego must be developed to its maximum. Only then can you let go of it. Just like never being in prison so you don't know what freedom is. If you've been in jail for many years or many lifetimes and then one day you are released, you walk out of the prison gates dancing, ecstatic, and you wonder why people outside, walking on the street, going to work, to the office, to the factory, aren't enjoying their freedom at all. They forget. They don't know they are free. How could they know? Since they've never been in prison, they lack the contrast. They lack something to compare it to. Or like using white chalk to write on a white wall. Nobody can read it, let alone others. Even you can't read what you've written. These 7 gates must be passed through before you can become a Buddha. You must enter the darkest realms of life, into the night of the soul, and then come back to the dawn when the morning comes, when the sun is rising and all is light again. But having a fully developed ego is rare. If you understand me, the entire structure of education would be paradoxical. First, they should teach you about the ego. That should be the first chapter of education, the first half. Then they should teach you about no self, how to let it go. That would be the second half. Currently, people enter 1 gate, or 2, 3 gates, then get stuck in some fragment of the ego. The first thing is the ego of the body. Children gradually learn. It takes about 15 months for them to understand that they are separate, that there is something inside them and something outside. They learn that their body is distinct from other bodies. Yet, some people cling to this very fragmented ego throughout their lives. They believe that the body is everything, that there is nothing beyond your body, that the body encompasses your entire existence, that there is no consciousness separate from or above the body, that consciousness is just a chemical phenomenon within the body, that you do not exist separately from the body, and when the body dies, you also die, and everything disappears. Dust returns to dust. There's nothing sacred within. They pull humanity down to the material. These are the people still clinging to the first gate. Their mental age seems to be just 15 months. This simple and very basic ego does not transcend materialism. And their lifelong concerns are how to acquire money, accumulate wealth because money buys material things. You can buy almost anything with money, but you cannot buy spiritual things. You cannot buy what has intrinsic value. You can only buy objects. The capitalist tries to accumulate money, the communist opposes it. They do not allow the accumulation of money, except by the state. But their concern is also money. They constantly think about money. It's not coincidental that Marx named his communist scripture Das Kapital. It's the Bible of communism, yet it's called capital. That's their concern, not allowing anyone to accumulate money. That right is reserved for the state, and how to seize the state. So, in essence, they are still concerned about money. Someone said that Mullah Nasruddin had turned communist. I know him. I was a bit surprised. That's a miracle. I know his greed. So I asked, Mullah, do you know what communism means? He said, yes. I said, do you know that if you have 2 cars and someone has none, you will have to give one of them to that person? He said, I am willing to give one. I said, if you have 2 houses and someone has no house, then you would give one away, right? He said, I am totally willing right now. And I said, if you have 2 donkeys, you would give one away, right? He said, that I cannot agree to. I cannot give one. I cannot do that. But I said, why? Because it's the same logic, the same reasoning. He said, no, it's not the same. I have 2 donkeys, but I don't have 2 cars. The communist mind is fundamentally a capitalist mind. The capitalist mind is fundamentally a communist mind. They are opponents in the same game. The name of that game is capital. Many people, millions, have only evolved this primitive ego, very rudimentary. If you have this ego, it's hard to surrender. It's far from being ripe. The second gate I call self-identity. The idea here is about the child starting to grow up. When looking in the mirror, it sees the same face. Every morning upon waking up, it runs to look in the mirror and it says, "This is me." Sleep has not disturbed anything. It begins to have a notion of a continuous self. Those who are overly attached to this gate, stuck at this gate, are the idealists. They think they are about to enter heaven, to be liberated. But they are stuck there. When you think of heaven, you think as though you are here, and you'll also be there. Perhaps the body won't be there, but your inner continuity will persist. That's absurd. That ultimate liberation only happens when the ego has dissolved and all identifications have disappeared. You become emptiness. The idea that children have a continuous self is pursued by idealists. They keep searching. Where does the soul enter the body? Where does it leave the body? What shape does the soul have? Is there a sound or environment and the like? All nonsense and meaningless. The soul has no form. It is pure emptiness. It is the vast sky without clouds. It is silence without thought, unbounded, uncovered by anything. That idea of an eternal soul, the idea of self, still whirls in your mind. Even if the body dies, you still want to be sure that I will continue to live. Many people come to Buddha because they are obsessed with this second type of ego. They believe in an eternal, indestructible soul, Atman. They come to Buddha and ask, "What remains after I die?" He laughs loudly and says, "Right now there is nothing, so why worry about death? There was never anything from the start." And this was unimaginable for the Hindu mind. The Hindu mind is mostly stuck in the second ego. That's why Buddhism couldn't survive in India. Within 500 years, Buddhism disappeared. It took root more easily in China because of Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu had really prepared fertile ground for Buddhism there. The climate was ready, as if someone had tilled the land. Just the seeds were needed. And when the seeds reached China, they grew into a big tree. But in India, it disappeared. Lao Tzu didn't talk about an eternal self, and in China, nobody was much concerned either. There are 3 cultural spheres in the world. One culture called materialism, very prevalent in the West. Another culture called idealism, very prevalent in India. And China has a third type of culture, neither materialistic nor idealistic. That's Taoism, living in the present and not being concerned about the future, because being concerned about heaven and hell, immortality and liberation is still being concerned about oneself. It's very selfish, and it revolves around the ego. According to Lao Tzu and Buddha, a person striving to reach heaven is someone obsessed with the ego, very selfish, and that person knows nothing about their inner being. There is no self. The third gate is self-esteem. Children are curious about everything and delight in doing things. Some people get stuck here. They become engineers. They turn into actors, artists, politicians. They are the showmen. The crucial point is the doer. They want to prove to the world that they can do something. If the world gives them an opportunity to create, that's good. Otherwise, they turn destructive. Did you know Adolf Hitler wanted to attend art school? He wanted to become a painter. That was his desire. Because he was rejected, because he was not considered a good painter, because he failed the entrance exam, that rejection was hard for him to accept. His creativity turned sour. He became destructive. But he only wanted to be a painter. He wanted to do something. Because he was told he couldn't do that job, to retaliate, he became destructive. Criminals and politicians are distant relatives. They are cousins. If a criminal is given a good opportunity, he will become a politician. And if a politician doesn't encounter good opportunities to have a say, he will turn into a criminal. They are related to each other. At any moment, a politician can become a criminal, and a criminal can become a politician. This has happened through many ages, yet we still haven't become wise enough to scrutinize everything. The fourth gate, self-extension. The word mine is the key here. People have to extend themselves by accumulating wealth, by gathering power, by having more and more, bigger and bigger each day. The patriot says, "This is my country and it is the greatest country in the world." You can ask the Indian patriot. He proudly proclaims everywhere that this is the country of righteousness, the best country in the world. Once, a so-called saint came to me, a Hindu monk, and he said, "Don't you believe that this is the only country where so many Buddhas have been born, so many great souls, avatars, so many gods, Rama, Krishna, and others? Why? Because this is the most virtuous land." I told him, perhaps the opposite is more accurate. If doctors keep visiting the neighbor's house, now it's the family doctor, then an acupuncturist, then a folk healer. What would you think of it? He said, "It's simple. Someone in that house is sick." That's the case with India. It needs so many Buddhas. This country seems to be very sick and mentally ill. So many doctors, so many healers. Buddha said, "I am a physician." And Krishna also said, whenever there is a spread of darkness in the world, whenever morality declines in the world, and whenever the universe becomes unbalanced, I will come back. So why did he come that time? There must have been the same reason, and why keep coming to India? But the patriot is arrogant, aggressive, selfish. He keeps shouting, "My country is special, my religion is special, my church is special, My book is special. My guru is special. And everything else is rubbish. This is just the ego's bluster. Some people get caught up in this mind: the fanatic, the patriot, the Hindu, the Christian, the Muslim. The fifth gate, self-image. Children begin to explore everything, experimenting with all sorts of things. When praised by parents, they think, "I am quite good." When commended, they feel, "I am really great." When they are angrily scolded and yelled at, "Don't do that," they feel, "I am a mess." They shrink back. A child on its first day of school is asked by the teacher, "What's your name?" The child says, "Johnny Don't." The teacher is puzzled. "Johnny Don't? I've never heard such a name." The child says, Whatever I do, I am always called that. My mom yells, "Johnny Don't." My dad shouts, "Johnny Don't." So I think that's my name. Always don't. It doesn't matter what I do anymore. The fifth gate is the gate through which morality enters. You become a moralist. You feel proud, holier than thou. Or in disillusionment, in defiance, in rebellion, you become immoral, and you fight against the world to show the world what for. Fritz Perls, the founder of Gestalt therapy, writes about one of the defining experiences of his life. He was a psychotherapist in Africa with many clients because he was the only psychoanalyst there. He had a big car, a villa with a garden, a swimming pool, and everything people desire, the luxuries of the middle class. Then he went to Vienna to attend a World Psychoanalysis Conference. Of course, being a success in Africa, he thought Freud would welcome him, would honor him. And since Freud was considered the father of psychoanalysis, he wanted Freud's praise. He wrote a study and worked on it for months because he wanted Freud to know who he was. Freud read the paper but did not respond. Freud was very cold, like the other psychoanalysts. The paper was almost ignored, not commented on. He felt very shocked, disheartened, but still hoped that meeting Freud would change things. And he went to meet Freud. He had just reached the doorstep, not yet crossed the threshold when Freud stood there. And he said to Freud, just to draw attention, "I have come here from thousands of miles away." Instead of greeting him, Freud said, "So when are you leaving?" This made him furious. This is how to welcome a guest? So, when are you leaving? And the meeting ended like that. He turned away, muttering continuously like chanting a mantra in his head, "I will show you, I will show you, I will show you." And to show Freud, he founded a major school against psychoanalysis, Gestalt. This is a childlike reaction. If accepted, it feels comfortable, ready to do whatever the parents want. But if continuously disappointed, it starts thinking recklessly. There's no way to receive my parents' love, but I still need their attention. If they don't pay attention to me anymore, I will take risks, I will smoke, I will harm myself and others, and I will do everything they don't want me to do, but I will make them worry about me. I will show them. This is the fifth gate, self-image. Both the sinner and the saint are stuck here. Heaven and hell are ideas of those trapped at this stage. Millions are ensnared. They fear hell and crave heaven. They want to be praised by God, and they want Him to tell them, "You are good. I am pleased with you." They sacrifice their lives for some fantasy beyond life and death. They torture themselves in various ways, hoping God will say, "Yes, you have devoted your life to me," as if their God is someone who enjoys tormenting others or wants to be tormented. They torture themselves thinking they will please God. Why do you do this? You fast, and you think God will be pleased with you? You starve, and you think He will be delighted with you. Is He cruel? Does He enjoy others' suffering? And this is what the so-called saints have done. They tortured themselves and looked up to the heavens, hoping that sooner or later God will say, "My dear child, you have pleased me. Come here to enjoy the bliss of heaven. Come, here rivers are of wine, streets are paved with gold, and castles are inlaid with diamonds. And women here never age, they remain 16 forever. Come with me, you have done your duty, come to receive your reward. The whole idea of sacrifice is like this. It's a foolish notion because all ideas of the ego are foolish. The sixth gate, the ego of reason. It arrives through education, experience, reading, learning, listening. You gather ideas, then you create ideologies, structures, philosophies. This is where philosophers, scientists, thinkers, intellectuals, and rationalists get stuck. But this gets more complex. Compared to the first gate, this gate is very subtle. The seventh gate, impossible endeavor. Artists, mystics, dreamers, and visionaries get trapped here. They attempt to create a utopian society in this world. The word utopian is beautiful, meaning something that never happens. It always looms but never materializes. It's always there, but never here. Yet, there are those moon gazers, eyes fixed on the distant horizon, their minds lost in dreams. Great poets, visionaries, their egos are caught in the unformed. There are also those who wish to unite with God. They are the mystics. Remember, formation is the key word for the seventh gate, and it's the final gate of the ego. The ripest ego arrives here. That's why you'll find a poet, for instance, they might have nothing, might be a beggar, but in their eyes, on their nose, you'll see a big ego. A mystic might have renounced the world and might be sitting in a cave in the Himalayan silence. You go there and look at him. He might kiss your feet, but he wants to show off. Do you see how humble I am? There are 7 gates. The ego is complete when all these 7 gates have been passed through. That ripe ego can fall at any moment. The child stands before these 7 egos, while Buddha has left these 7 egos behind. It's a full circle. You might ask, what's the difference between the emptiness of a child before the ego forms and the awakened innocence of a Buddha? Here's the difference. Buddha has gone through all these 7 egos, seen them, examined them, seen that they are all illusions. He has come home and once again has become a child. This is the meaning of Jesus Christ's words. Unless you become like little children, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven.